Hey, everybody, welcome to the Friday night live show of What's on My Mind. Like I said last night, there's things I think about every day, things that come across my desk, things I'm happy about, things that piss me off. There's some topics out there that, definitely have been on my mind for a while. I'm going to talk to you about one of them here in just a little bit, but you might notice a little bit of paraphernalia on my desk. These things have something to do with my show tonight. First and foremost, big shout out to the Duke Blue Devils. I've been a Dookie my whole life. Love watching the team play. I know everybody hates Christian Leitner, but if you don't like him enough, come see me. I'll take you out behind the woodshed, put a beating on you because Duke won a national championship. He made the shot. And, right now they're, I think, number two in the nation. In my opinion, they should be number one. They beat the number one team, Auburn, earlier this year. And I'm pretty sure that when it comes down to it in the tournament, they're going to get the job done. But basketball this year, I'm enjoying watching some games when I get a chance. And I think there's 7 or 8 teams that could be right there at the end. So if you're down for March Madness, man, it's coming to us fast. March starts tomorrow. Conference tournaments are going to be coming up. And, as the month progresses, we're going to be in the tournament, the big dance. And I can hardly wait to fill up my tournament bracket challenge. In fact, I might even start my own bracket this year instead of participating in Jay Billis's ESPN bracket. So if we do, I'll let everybody know. Anybody that's a basketball fan can chime in. But, the 5-point play, the Duke hat, and then the big topic for tonight's show. I want to talk to you all about polar bears. Man, I'll tell you what, the polar bear issue pisses me off. Not because people hunt them, but because there's people out there that would turn them into a puppet, a pawn. Polar bears have been turned into the front page image of the war on climate change. And the reality is that wildlife pay the price for our emotion-based decision making and wildlife management. In this case, it's a quite an overreach by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So let me talk to you about polar bear hunting. I want to talk with facts. When I try to stay up to date on things, I was doing a little bit of research yesterday. I wanted some pretty hardcore truths. Okay. And one of these days, and hopefully in the very near future, I'm going to get a chance to film one of our Steve's Outdoor Adventures television series episodes, polar bear hunting and interviewing people in the Arctic. And it's a passion project of mine. And like anything that's a passion project, I'm going to get it done and it will come to fruition. So as we go through the show here tonight, if you have questions, drop us a comment underneath this live post. Put a comment down, ask a question, whatever you'd like. I'll try to answer it. Even if you drop comments 2, 3, 4 days from now, I'll go back and I'll try to answer them as best I can. But the very first thing that I want to tell everybody is that polar bears are an endangered species listed animal. They're protected by the Endangered Species Act. But did you know that the Endangered Species Act is not a global law? The Endangered Species Act only pertains to Americans and Mexicans. That's it. That's it. Americans and Mexicans. That's how ridiculous the Endangered Species Act is. Now, does it do some good? Yeah, it does some good, but it's become heavily politicized. It's been used to further agendas that have absolutely nothing to do with protecting wildlife. And I'll give you an example of that here in a second. But to go back, let me give you a little history. So I checked the Marine Mammal Act, Protection Act of 1972, and then the Agreement on the Conservation of Polar Bears in 1973 banned trophy hunting of polar bears in the Arctic. Now, that went on again, off again through the 80s. I don't remember the exact dates of when it started and ended and started and ended. But basically, it got into the 80s, late 80s. The ban was on again. And then the United States reopened polar bear trophy importation in 1994. And at that point in time, in 1994, the annual number of polar bears killed uh, doubled or almost doubled in 2007 um, to 143 animals, 143 polar bears. You guys, that's nothing. That's such a minimal number. Once again, in 2007, 143 trophy polar bear hunters killed bears. And these are just trophy bears. This does not represent the fur market. Okay. But a whole whopping 143 trophy bears were killed. Now, keep in mind, they can't, let's say the Canadian government doesn't regulate what the Inuits want to harvest as subsistence or fur trade. Okay. They have indigenous rights. You can look that up all you want. Okay. And to think that in 2007, 143 bears were killed is nothing. Okay. The United States renewed its ban on polar bear trophies and skins being imported into the United States in 2008. Thanks, Barack Obama. Okay. Um, that resulted in a 73% reduction in Canada's trophy bear hunting. Now, keep in mind, the ban has always been in place in Alaska where there's lots of polar bears. Okay. There's plenty of polar bears in Alaska, but let's just talk about Canada. Okay. Canada's Fish and Wildlife Service deems their polar bear population, their biologists, hit that there, their biologists in Canada have determined that they have a huntable population of polar bears. And they give the Inuit communities, the hunters and trappers communities, they give them polar bear permits that can be sold to non-Inuit hunters. Okay. And, you know, it's ridiculous to me that this is the case. Okay. But in 2007, 143 non-Inuit hunters went up to the Arctic and killed polar bears. That's it, 143. The Arctic is so vast, so vast. And the hunters that went up there could not bring their polar bears home since that ban in 2008. Okay. Who are we? And I say we meaning the United States of America and our biologists at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Who are we to tell the Canadian Fish and Wildlife Service that they're not smart enough to manage their own polar bear populations? Really, who are we? Seems pretty arrogant on my part. I think we're overstepping our bounds. I think if the biologists in another country want to set a hunting season and a polar bear permit quota or a harvest quota, we should recognize them as smart enough to manage their own wildlife. And the United States hunters should not be punished. We shouldn't be the only hunters in the world who are punished and can't take our polar bear hides home. You know, they banned polar bear hunting in Russia, but a Russian can go to Canada, hunt a polar bear, and take it home with them or have it imported into Russia at a later date. A Chinese hunter, a Spanish hunter, all right, Portuguese, South American, wherever they are in the world, the Endangered Species Act does not apply to them. All right. Doesn't apply to them at all. Only applies to Americans. All right. In 2012, 665 polar bears were killed in the Arctic. Okay. 665 polar bears. That tells you how many bears are being killed on the fur trade. All right. Now, let me explain this to you, why that's happening. In 2007, 143 trophy bears were killed. Now, those are bears that people paid anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 a piece to go hunt, depending on the community they were hunting with, the quality of the outfitter, things of that nature. When the ban went in place, that was reduced by 73%. Okay. That means that all those trophy hunters that were bringing, let's say $40,000, $50,000 a year into those communities went away. Well, the Inuits, they're no dummies. They know they need economic, growth. They know they need money to put gas in their snowmobiles and feed their sled dogs. They know that they need money to put in the bank to pay their bills. Now, these are not Inuits from the past that sew seal skins and, live in igloos. No, they've got a house. They've got bills to pay. And the United States Fish and Wildlife Service took away their ability to make a living. So instead of taking one hunter for $50,000, they're going to kill 10 polar bears at $5,000 a hide to go pay the bills. And they take them down to Montreal and they sell the hides at the fur market. That's what they do with them. So in order to replace the one trophy bear, they kill 10 fur trade market bears. That's how it works. Pretty simple. Trophy hunting, funded by, yes, wealthy hunters, pays for conservation. And you know what? No matter how much the anti-hunting community wants to get up in arms about it, The Canadian government is not going to go tell the Inuits that they can't subsistence and fur trade hunt the polar bears. Now, they might do something someday on the fur trade market. That might make it more difficult, but it's going to be just like the rhino, where you end up with an illegal fur trade. That doesn't benefit anybody. Let's just go right back to, hey, let's take 143 trophy polar bear hunters a year, or 150, or however many the biologists deem is an acceptable harvest, and let those guys pay $50,000, $60,000 a year a piece and go hunt for polar bears. And then stop the fur trade. We reduce the fur trade. We eliminate the fur trade, because those Inuit guides are going to say, gosh, why would I shoot this bear for $5,000 when I can kill him for $50,000 with a trophy hunter and take far fewer bears and do far less work? Makes no sense. The anti-hunters can't see past the end of their nose. The people that have politicized and turned polar bears into a Bambi-like Disney character. I mean, for God's sakes, you got Coca-Cola putting them in the commercial while they're all sitting on an iceberg together, sipping a Coca-Cola. Cute commercial. The reality is, polar bears don't sit on an iceberg sipping Coca-Cola together. They just don't. It's ridiculous. They're painting an image that's not real. In really real life, the sow with her 2 cubs that goes out to sit down on the iceberg will have a great big boar come along with his Coca-Cola. He's going to sit down, look at her, wonder why she's not in heat, kill the cubs, and then chase her around on the iceberg until she comes back into heat and breed her again. That's life on the iceberg, okay? Number 2, polar bears don't live on icebergs. They live on the mainland, eating grass, following the coastline around, looking for walruses and whales that are washed up so they can feed on them. Great scavengers, right? Then the sea ice comes. And they go out on the sea ice. Sure enough, they go out on that sea ice and they look for seals. And they feed on seals all winter long. And is the sea ice receding? Yes. You bet it is. What that tells me is that the bears are going to be out on the sea ice a shorter period of time. They're not going to kill as many seals. But doggone, they're going to come back to mainland and they're going to feed. And they're going to act like regular omnivore bears. It's been proven, and then you got this picture that Paul Nicklin took in the video of that emaciated bear on the shoreline. And it was like, oh no, he couldn't get enough seals to eat. No, that bear looks like he's 35 years old. He's at the end of life. He's become a pawn. That bear lived a regal life. Man, that bear lived a good life. And he was old. He was ready to die. And Paul Nicklin snapped an incredible image of this bear that just became, once again, an image, and that bear became a pawn in the climate change, message and the anti-hunting message. It's just ridiculous. And people get their heartstrings tugged. We should not be allowing emotion-based wildlife management. I see a comment that just came in. Fishing game sucks. My dream is to kill a polar bear. Yeah, bud. Like Zach, I'm telling you, we should listen to the Canadian Fish and Wildlife. The biologists in Canada say, hey, we can have a season. Come on up. They want American hunters to come out and hunt. There's just not going to be a whole lot of them going to hunt, because when we kill a polar bear, we can have it wet tanned and we can store it in a freezer for eternity. But until the laws change here and we get a sensible head of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and people that are in charge that will change, until they change that law, man, the Inuit communities pay a price. The polar bears pay a price. The polar bears pay the price for a ban on trophy hunting imports to the United States, because once again, instead of taking one hunter for $50,000, the Inuit hunters kill 10 or more. I mean, let's look at it. Instead of killing 143 trophy bears, there were 665 bears killed in 2012. All right. And that was 70% of all the polar bear hunting on the Arctic. And for 2010 to 2016, there were approximately 5,745 polar bears killed, or 821 of them per year on average. Okay. And if trophy hunters are killing maybe 100 to 125 of those bears a year, once again, the Inuit hunters are making up for lost revenue by killing another 700 or more bears a year. The math is just unbelievable. Yeah, it's unbelievable. If you're an Inuit who's killing a bear and taking that hide to Montreal, it's not tanned, right? So they're just salted and dried probably. They're selling them to a tannery that tans them and then resells them for 10 or 15,000. I mean, there's a great trade here. I know people who would love to buy a polar bear hide. Can't get them in the United States, but all over the world. Man, I was just looking at this. Yeah, the statistics. One trophy hunted bear right now has the same value as 6 to 10 fur market hunted bears. The math tells me 10. All right. I guess maybe some hides aren't cared for as well and aren't worth as much, and some are worth more. But it's just ridiculous. We need to bring back. Oh, it's Zach. Yeah, you've got a comment. So Zach, to answer your question, it is not legal in any way, shape, or form to import a polar bear hide or trophy or any part of a polar bear back into the United States right now. None. Now, there are Alaskan Eskimos. Okay. There are people who live in Alaska who have native hunting rights and can go hunt polar bears and kill them. They can. The non-native hunters like us, we have no rights to go up and hunt them in Alaska, but that's the only exception in America. In Canada, I can buy a hunt. I can go up there. I can hunt with an outfitter. I can legally hunt with an outfitter in Canada. I can kill a polar bear legally in Canada, but the arrogant SOBs at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Washington, D.C. have deemed it illegal for me to bring that polar bear hide home, even though the Canadian Fish and Wildlife Service has determined that there is a huntable population, that they have quotas set for them, the seasons are in place, everything is in place. But the arrogant U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is telling the Canadian Fish and Wildlife Service, you don't know what you're doing. You shouldn't have a bear season. And because you don't know what you're doing, we're going to take it out on our American hunting community, our American hunters, and they can't bring them home. My sister's going to get a polar bear trophy one of these days if she'll put it in her house. She lives in Montreal. This is one place where I give it to the Canadians. They have a sensible Fish and Wildlife Service, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service would do well to stay out of their business. We need to stay out of the Canadian Fish and Wildlife's business and allow American hunters to import trophies that are legally killed in other countries. End of story. I don't even know what else to say about it. I'm pissed off about it. I'm mad that our country has its head so far up its ass that it can't change the way we think. We just have to be that arrogant, I guess. And I say we because it's our country. All right. I'm a citizen of the United States of America. It's a we problem. And right now, I think we need to kick everybody out of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service leadership and start from scratch and get some people in there that don't have an agenda. We need to get politics out of wildlife management. We need to get emotion-based decision-making out of wildlife management. And we need to get people in there that are educated, are experienced in wildlife management, and are willing to listen to the biologists in other countries and not just hold our high and mighty, better than thy, we're better than you attitude. We should not be doing that. No chance at all. And I know that not everybody has a chance to watch a show live. So all of you out there that are watching this well after it's been recorded and put up on Facebook and YouTube, I'll do my best to come back and answer any questions that you might have, because for the last 20 years, I've been paying very good attention to what's happening with polar bears. I'm ready to do the documentary on it. Right now, we're looking for some corporate sponsors to come on board and help fund, actually making this film come to fruition. We have the biologists in Canada that are willing to go on camera. We've got the Inuit elders in multiple communities that are willing to go on camera. We want to make this film. I would love to put this film out there and get the leadership in America. Heck, I'd love Donald Trump to watch this video. If I make that film and I have a nice 2-hour documentary about the truth I call it seeking truth, right? I'm seeking the truth on polar bears. I want to capture it on film. I want to produce that. And I want Donald Trump to watch that film and then put somebody in charge at U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to change the laws, to change those importation laws so that the Endangered Species Act doesn't punish lawful American hunters. End of story. Wow. We're getting a lot of comments flooding in now. Oh yeah, Cody, what's the point? Cody, there is no point. You're too cheap to ever pay for a polar bear hunt. Let's just get that out of the way right now. You're my buddy, but unless I take you along on a polar bear hunt, the point is you ain't going. So, um, and you know what? It's I see like the comments, other comments like, what's the difference between a polar bear? There's places in Africa where they've determined there's enough polar bears or excuse me, elephants, and you can bring the ivory home. There's places where God, everybody probably remembers Cecil the lion. Cecil the lion was a legally killed lion. It's just the media got a hold of it. Everybody's like, "Oh golly, they killed a colored Cecil the lion! Oh my God!" He was killed legally. He just happened to come over to a neighboring piece of property. They couldn't see the collar on him because his mane was so big, got killed. And some poor dentist paid the price for the heartstrings of America getting tugged. I mean, seriously, that's what it was. Emotions ran wild. Delta and United said, we will no longer fly trophies home with hunters. They never flew trophies home with hunters to begin with. Okay. Nobody ever went to Africa, hunted, and flew home with their trophies. And let me tell you something. I'll bet you anything, Delta Cargo never stopped flying boxes of processed anything back from Africa. They're a for-profit business. But everybody had to come out and say their 2 cents and be politically correct for a week and appease the anti-hunting, fruits that run around out there. I shouldn't call them fruits, just the nuts. These people are emotion driven. And, the war is on in Colorado. That'll be a future live video. I'm going to collect some more facts on what's happening. I want to know what's happening in Colorado. But Colorado's under fire right now. Those poor people have more, elk than any other state in the union, and incredible elk hunting resource and big game hunting in general. And the whole state's under fire because it's been invaded with a bunch of blue state Democrats from California and back east, and they're just ruining the state. Colorado hunters, wake up. You're in for the fight of your lives. The next 5 years are going to determine the next 50 years of wildlife management in your state. Like I said, I'll do a future show on that, but it's a sad state out there right now. Hunting in general is under attack. I'll tell you what, there's a guy that's moving the needle in hunting right now. It's Robbie Kroger. I took him hunting, so I'm sure he's on the show. We actually filmed an elk hunt here in Oregon. Robbie, when he was here, went down, testified before the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife about expanding spring bear seasons, not retracting them. He's done wondrous things all across the world, or all around the world, for hunting and spreading a pro hunting message. And, he was on point with helping to promote some laws. I think one of them was in Florida, and there was another state where they passed laws for the right to fish and hunt. Passing a law in a state like Colorado that guarantees the right to fish and hunt is critical. We need to get that bill on the next ballot there, no doubt. But once again, we need to get this message in front of our current president. We need to make sure that he understands that we need to get new leadership at U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We need them to listen. We need them to have common sense. And we need them to listen to the biologists in the other states. And they need to have nothing to do with politics. Like, they literally should not be able to turn on CNN, C-SPAN, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News, anything. There's be no politics involved with wildlife management on this planet. None whatsoever. Has no place in wildlife management. So anyway, oh yeah, Zach, wolves suck too. The reality is that we're stuck with wolves. Zach, I know a lot of guys out there would love to eradicate them. The reality is that today's hunters are too lazy and too uneducated enough to know out and go out and actually hunt them. We were back in the 40s when we eradicated wolves from the landscape in North America. They had to go to poisoning. Hunters will not get it done, even with all of our great technology and everything. Wolves are here to stay. And I think what we need to do is we need to get these states on board with managing wolves, because when we can hunt them, we can at least keep them back up in the wilderness areas, back in the deep national forest areas. By hunting them, we educate them that man is one step up on the food chain, that they can't just walk past us on a road and wave as they go by, because they're going to catch some lead. And that would allow us to manage their numbers and keep them in wolf. I don't want to call anything a wolf friendly area, but call it like a wolf zone. They don't have any place being anywhere near populous centers. We've got wolves within 5 miles of La Grande, probably as I'm speaking, the town we live in. And if wolves are that close, that means somebody's cat or dog's probably going to get killed. They're down there eating elk and deer on the winter range. And we shouldn't be mad at wolves. Wolves are doing what they're supposed to do. God made them to be the apex predator that they are. We need to be pissed off at the morons that keep furthering a pro-wolf agenda, and it's just, like I said, they're here to stay. And now we need to work with the state wildlife agencies to, manage them and come up with sensible wolf legislation. So, well, folks, I think I've rambled on enough here tonight. I wanted to give you something to chew on. Once again, every time you think about hunting, I want you to understand that the Endangered Species Act only applies to Americans and Mexicans, and that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is screwing us every time they get a chance. We need new leadership there. I want you guys to write your congressman and ask for it. I want you to ask all of our leadership across the United States that, to push for new leadership and sensible wildlife management from the highest wildlife agency in the land, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So, folks, that's all we've got, for time today. But once again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching tonight's show of what's on my mind. And I'll always try to keep it at a minimum as to rambling about the things that piss me off. So in the meantime, go Duke.